Hey guys, what's up? Limitless Motorsports Garage here. So today we're going to be doing a couple things. We don't have the parts or the money right now. There's a little snag on the Fox wheels. We'll get to that. But we're going to do a couple things this week to try to... My truck's losing coolant. And then the Mustang, I was always curious about... We took it to a shop and they said that the compression was low in cylinder 4. I want to find out what exactly it is, and we're going to see what the numbers are. He never told me the numbers, so I basically paid $80 for him to tell me to piss off. We got an update on the garage. We've had some flooding in the northern part of Georgia, pretty bad. So we're not working inside today because of that. These are the kits we're going to be using. Compression tester, and we're going to rig it so it'll work as a leak down, because nobody around here rents one. And we're going to do a cooling system pressure test kit. And as you can see, there's a lot of water in the garage. I mean, it just stopped raining last night, so squeegeeing out right now, I mean, there was like 4 inches of water in here. As you can see, it's still an inch, maybe. But another thing, and this is the snag that we hit. So this is the AOD transmission. We're going to get a new torque converter. This shaft, it comes out, which apparently is normal, but that play right there is not normal. So after reading up on forums about it, apparently the play is indicative of a bad shaft / they were bad from the factory. They needed a hardened shaft, and so I'm going to contact the company and see how much it's going to cost me for a rebuilt transmission. And then I'm going to look into how much a new one's going to cost. There's other options. I was actually, planning on taking it to that event down in Concord, North Carolina, but if this is the snag I'm going to hit, I mean, I have some money, but I don't have that kind of money. So let's see what we can figure out today. So we got the pressure tester right here on the Mustang. You can't see it, but first what we're going to do is we're going to check the cap. Now, if I recall, these are 16 PSI. So we got to get our appropriate adapters, which is this one happens to be number 24. We got to get it down on there nice and snug, enough for it to click like that. Take and put it into our tester. And if you would do that, start holding this gauge up. Let's hold it up for let's see if we can get it there. Sorry for the wind noise. So as you can see, it's only holding about 5 pounds or 6 pounds. And you can get it to about 10 and then it quickly drops. So pump it pretty good a couple times. Yeah, it's not holding much.
Feels bad.
So, probably a bad cap. I mean, this looks like a cheap one. I think the official ones have the, this one doesn't even have any lettering on it. So, that's probably bad. That's a cheap fix. 20 bucks, I think. So now we just disconnect this and put it back in our toolkit. Now we have to get our number 3, and this is what goes on our actual radiator. Coolant bottle. We're going to get this on there pretty nice and tight. Now this one you won't be able to see, but I'll read off if you'll hold that gauge up so I can see it. I don't know what PSI this one's supposed to be. It's holding about 5. I'll look that up and I'll come back with you and just make sure it's not going up anymore. We did this a second ago. Special ball exploded in my face. Yeah, I can't.
It's holding how much? I can't see, so.
It's like 12 PSI and rising.
Interesting. I wouldn't do it anymore.
I'm not going to go over like 15.
Because this is going to, it might start doing something.
Look away. Yeah. So it's holding at least 15 psi. So probably this bottle might be fine. Oh, I thought that was going to be more explosive. Okay, the bottle might be fine. It's probably that radiator cap, which is a super simple, cheap fix. And literally like 10 minutes at the dealership, if that. Oh yeah, you can do that. So now we know that is something good because it did lose coolant before. That's not something I can do.
Yeah,
We'll be right back. Alright, now we got our gloves. We're gonna get that thing off. Get it?
I can't get it. It isn't gripping enough for me. Is it gripping enough for me? Is there a rag?
Oh, I got it.
Oh, nice.
Gotta get it the right angle. Alright. Now, onto the fun part. Let me recenter. So now onto the fun part. We're going to do a compression test and a leak down test, hopefully. I know the numbers are low. I don't know how low. But we're going to see how low, and we're also going to figure out where the leak is at. And as we go, I'll show you and teach you how how to figure out where the leak is coming from. There's a lot of good little tips to find it. So yeah, let's get to it. So now we have our compression tester hooked up. So all we got to do is crank it. We're going to see what numbers it draws. As far as I know, this cylinder is low. We will test cylinder number 3. But yeah, it's going to be low in this one. I have a feeling I know what's wrong. We'll probably do the leak down test before we move on to cylinder 3. But yeah. That does not seem good. Alrighty. Let's see what pressure we got to. So that actually, I don't know what the healthy number is. I thought it was around 100. That's actually extremely good. So we know it's cylinder 4. I'm pretty sure we got it on there right, and then they're tight. So that means cylinder 4 is absolute garb. So yeah, that's good right there. Now we're gonna go back to, we did the compression test on 3. So we're gonna go back to cylinder 4 and we're gonna do a leak down test. And then we'll teach you about that and how that works. You can actually use a compression tester like this. You don't have to get a new tool, and you can rent this from the dollar store or Walmart. No, I'm just kidding. You can get these from Advanced or AutoZone or whatever. So let's release this and get on to work. Do another cylinder compression test on cylinder 4 earlier, and we must have had a problem. It actually started reading this time, so let's see what it does.
Seriously.
Why So how we're going to do this, take the tool out first. And get a little tool We're going to stick it down in the cylinder hole where the spark plug goes. Alright. We are going to take, in this particular car, it is a 15/16 socket. May need an extension. 15/16 socket.
You said that like 3 times though.
A 15/16 socket. It will work this time, by God. We may not even need the extension, but
That's pointless.
yeah, I don't think we're gonna need this extension.
30 unnecessary seconds.
Wait, hold on.
30 unnecessary seconds right there.
Yeah, we're not gonna need it. You don't want to turn it backwards because it can cause damage to the motor apparently. Okay, come over here. I'm gonna wash this. Hold this one shut. And I tell you, crank it this way, slowly. We will try this. So this is my first time doing a leak down test. It is pretty simple to do, but at the same time, if you don't get it pretty much top dead center, you will, the air will rush out everywhere and you can't properly tell where it's coming from. And we'll go over that in just a second. Alright, so there's a couple of ways you can tell. I forgot, when you have the compression tester, you have to modify it. You have to take the little valve stem off to get it to force air back in there. I forgot all about that. So a couple of ways that you can tell where the leak is coming from. Number one, if it's got piston ring leak, what you'll do is you'll take the oil cap off. You'll be able to hear it through there. Now typically if your compression is low, you're going to have it low on every cylinder, not just one. If it is a bad head gasket, it will be typically on 2 adjacent cylinders, and it's going to be, you can hear that, you can see the bubbles coming up through the radiator. If you have a bad intake valve, you can take the intake tube off and you can hear air rushing through in there. And if you have a bad exhaust valve, you can go to the exhaust and hear that. So because it's reading 0 pressure, we're going to force low PSI and slowly raise it 10 PSI at a time so we don't blow everything apart. Yeah. So let's hook the air up. Get the fitting down in there. Oh.
There it goes.
Hold on. Yeah. That's intake. So the intake is presumably bad. If it's not at top dead center, we will check in a second to make sure it's not at top dead center, or it is at top dead center. Another thing I forgot to mention, the head gasket, it is possible just one cylinder is affected. But if that is the case, it may be on the outside where you can see a leak. We're not seeing a leak. It is also possible that you would have it internally, or so when it's internal, you'll also see oil in the coolant, and we were not seeing oil in the coolant. So it would be milky looking, and there are no bubbles coming up through here. So we're hearing it really bad through the intake. We're going to reset after, we're going to make sure it's not coming through the exhaust, and we're going to reset and make sure it's at top dead center. Alright, so we checked the exhaust. I'm not feeling anything coming through the exhaust. We can hear a definite whoosh, and feel the whoosh actually. You don't even have to open the throttle body, you can feel it.
Ooh, why is it making a noise? Oh, throttle.
Yeah. So when I open the throttle, I'm not feeling it, but I can hear it very loudly. But when I have it closed, I can feel it. You can feel it, and you can feel it's coming out. So like I said, we're going to reset, and we're going to make sure it's at top dead center. Alright, so in conclusion, we have we pressure tested the radiator and the radiator cap on the trucks. We found out the radiator cap is bad. As far as the Mustang goes, we quadruple checked our results, making sure it was at top dead center every time. And I did it about at least 4 times. Yeah, the intake is bad. We're only forcing 20 psi through it, and it's just, I mean, I can hook it right up and show you, but not that you don't believe me.
So, waste of time.
No. It was perfect. I had a feeling it was the exhaust. I was wrong. The exhaust valve. It is not. It is the intake valve. Basically the same fix. It is a relatively inexpensive fix compared to other things. If it was piston rings, short of me doing them myself, that would be probably a $200 thing. But if I took it to a shop, I mean, you're looking at, especially if they have to pull a motor, thousands of dollars. And at that point, it's like buy a new motor. As far as it goes, I would love to see this particular motor running again. The electrical was shitty on it. I'd probably have to take it to a shop for that because I'm not great with the electrical. Yeah, the heads can be removed. I can do that. It's not a super hard thing to do. We would have to take the heads off. It's about $80 in gaskets. And then I would have to source probably some new heads. And the reasoning behind that is because I could put these back on there, but I do believe they're stock E70E heads, which is, well, stock. GT40 heads and GT40P would work better. They would boost the horsepower, I think, around 10 to 20 horsepower.
I would think like maybe 15.
Yeah, probably. Depending on which one you go with. It's in that range, probably. I'm looking at GT40 heads just because GT40P would require, I think, different headers. That's more money, more cost. I just want this thing back on the road. I don't really care about like being super high horsepower. So the current plan with it is now, it's going to sit in the garage or sit outside one until the Fox gets done. Like I said, we've got parts. I hadn't ordered parts. We're going to do that Monday or Tuesday. I have to talk to some people and figure out what the prices are going to be on the transmission because I can't spend $2,000 on a transmission to get rebuilt when I can go buy a brand new one or buy the setup that I actually want to put in the Fox. I would really love to see the thing running properly. If I can't get it running properly, we can always take, and the alternative would be to put the Mustang motor that we were going to put in it in this one. And the car should run perfect because that motor has like 80,000 miles on it. If we do that, I will keep the T5 that's in it, or T45, I forget the code. I'll put that back in it and it'll be a manual. It won't run quite as good, be quite as fast, but I mean, it'll run and I'll have a secondary vehicle. Right now, I mean, this thing has been sitting for almost a year. I've been paying insurance on it. I actually just froze insurance, so as far as the truck goes, no real huge plans for it because it is what it is. It's a daily. It is just going to get fixed up, drove, and maybe some horsepower and torque in the future. Bigger turbo, bigger intercooler. But other than that, I mean, right now it's just, yeah, I want to get a larger turbo.
I thought you were talking about this. I was about to be like,
No.
supercharger.
Yes, I actually want to do a pro charger on this in the future, but the Fox, like I said, we'll get back with you next week, hopefully. Just depending.
If it doesn't flood again.
Yes, if it doesn't flood again, because
It's pretty bad in there.
yeah, it's like 3 inches deep in some places. You're a week behind, so
Whenever you guys probably see this, we'll be working on the Fox if it doesn't flood.
yeah, by the time you see this, hopefully we'll be actually working on it. Funds aren't super tight, but I don't have $3,000
To be like,
yeah.
you know,
So, and the actual motor and transmission, that's the alternative. I've alluded to it. It is a turbo 4-cylinder out of a 2015 and up. They're actually relatively inexpensive. You can get the motor 20,000 miles for like $1,500. And I don't know why people don't choose that as a swap. I know it's not really been, maybe not even been done yet. The transmission itself is like $600. $2,200, and you got a damn good setup. It's like 330 horsepower, 320 horsepower, and like 30 miles a gallon on the highway. So I don't know why people aren't doing it yet. But that was the end goal. So the Fox body, I wanted to get the V8 in it originally, and then I switched over to that plan because I would like a turbo 4-cylinder. Better gas mileage, all that, yada yada. But thanks for checking out the video. If you like us, subscribe, like, buy some merch. We don't even have merch. Buy it anyway. Just buy stuff and send us money. Yeah. Thanks.
That's a wrap.
Peace. Not so fast. So I wanted to cut in and give you some more information regarding what we found out. Now the easy fix may still not be a cheap fix either because of how a motor works. I did say that the problem was likely an intake valve, but it could be so much more than that. I had read some more info stating that if the intake valve was stuck open, that it would send excess fuel out the exhaust and reek of gasoline, and that was a symptom that we had experienced. Now timing is very precise and delicate, and if it is off by more than so much, it can cause catastrophic damage to the motor. The camshaft is driven via chain or belt mated to the crankshaft, which rotates and opens the valves or closes them depending on the orientation of the lobes of the camshaft, at least in my application, which is a overhead valve. It's delicate because the mixture has to be right for proper combustion, and also because the valves can get damaged by the pistons if they're stuck open and make contact with it. Now the problem could be because of a bad valve seal or a stuck valve, which could be caused by a damaged spring or just carbon buildup in the valve guides. The compression was reading 0 psi, so I think we would be lucky to have a best case scenario, which would be a valve that is barely stuck open and letting air and gas escape. This would lead to a simple teardown and rebuild of the heads. However, the worst case scenario would be the valve coming into contact with the piston, whether it's properly timed or not, and possibly damaging the piston, valve, or valve guide. It could have dropped the valve itself into the motor as well, which would have damaged the piston, if not destroyed the motor completely. Now, probably we would have heard that, and I haven't heard anything catastrophic going on down in there, so we're probably in the clear. If the piston is damaged, we would not only have to remove the heads and rebuild them, we would also have to remove the motor itself and rebuild it. We'd have to take the rotating assembly out to replace the one piston, which would also mean tearing into every other major aspect of rebuilding the motor, which includes new bearings, a new oil pan gasket, new piston rings, and so on. Even in the best case scenario, the motor will need an oil pan gasket, new paint, and a new interior, which is why I've postponed it versus the Fox. In the worst case scenario, I think it becomes a project that is immediately shelved due to funds and time. The Fox does need carpet, but the interior is otherwise pretty solid, and the paint is in alright condition. So the solution to figuring out what it needs is pretty simple actually. I have an endoscope camera that I can use to inspect inside the cylinder and see if it's damaged, or if I need just some new heads. So let's cut to that and figure it out. So I'm just going to show the screenshots I took from the vid and narrate over it as the video is all over the place. It's not really something I can just clearly from one point to another. Let's look at cylinder 4 first. The cylinder walls look to be in decent shape save for maybe some minor scoring. I don't think this would necessitate a rebuild. I'm not seeing anything major on the piston head aside from bad carbon buildup. At least that's what I think it is. It could be pitting in the piston head, but just from the coloration and everything, I don't think it is. If it was pitting, that would mean that I'm a lot worse off than we're thinking, but we'll see when we check out cylinder 5. Now, from some of the screenshots, it doesn't look like it's pitting, or at least not majorly. If it is, that would be a sign of something worse, which is detonation caused by, I think, an overly lean mixture. Probably the best sign of them all, unless there is something underlying, because I would think a valve or visible damage would be seen if the valve had dropped completely. I also don't think these are the stock pistons. The stock pistons don't have quite as drastic of a relief cut in the piston head. For your information, a relief cut would have lowered the compression, making it more appropriate for a supercharged or turbocharged motor. These are what the stock pistons look versus mine. As you can see, the valve is dirty on the backside, proving that it is probably just a stuck valve on the intake side as we had previously determined. I can't quite get the camera panned around to see the other valve, so I'm not quite sure which valve this is. I believe it's the exhaust valve because the intake valve is showing low pressure. So this one is moving freely, therefore it should be the exhaust valve. You can see some sort of liquid pulled up around the valve, and I saw it in the cylinder itself. I'm not seeing other signs of a bad head gasket either, so I can't say it's water mixed with gas. The car has sat for around a year, so I'm not quite sure what this is. Now let's look at cylinder 5 and see how it looks. Similar to piston 4, there is minor scoring on the walls of the piston, not necessitating any concern. This is pretty interesting. This piston is also covered with a black deposit similar to cylinder 4, presumably just carbon buildup. I know it was running pretty rich at the time, so that's probably all it is. This camera isn't high quality and the lighting is somewhat dim, but I don't think that there's any pitting on the pistons. This valve stem looks pretty clean on the backside, but has a slight carbon buildup behind the valve seal. This is not a huge cause for concern and shows that there is definitely a problem in 4. So in conclusion, we can take the heads off when the time comes, and we'll know for sure if it's something that will necessitate a full rebuild or not. My conclusion as of right now is a no. Just some heads with the accompanying parts like the valve stems, the rocker, the push rods, to upgrade and replace the old parts, and an oil pan gasket. Thanks for watching, guys and gals, and we'll see you next week. Yeah.
Thanks a wrap.
Peace. Another cylinder compression test on cylinder 4. I don't know why the fuck it's not.
I hate this.
It was just doing it a second.
No, you good.
Hey, that's racist.
Hey, racist.
So we're gonna hibby jibby the flim flam to the goober gabber. Why, you turd of a monkey shit bastard cocks. So now we have our compression tester hooked up.